Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here, and in today's video, going to be taking a look at the Week 10 Thursday Night Football Showdown slate on Draftkings. We got the Panthers and the Falcons playing this Thursday night. You know, it's not going to be the best primetime game, I have a feeling, but we still got, some big prize pools. Draftkings putting out a 500K to first GPP for this game. So I wanted to talk through some things with you guys, talk through the player pool, all the guys that I do have interest in for this Showdown slate. But before we do get started with the video, please hit that like button down below, guys. I do always appreciate the likes. And if you have not yet, hit that subscribe button as well. Also, if you are new here, check out the sponsor of this video, PrizePicks. So PrizePicks is a player prop based DFS site. Very simple, very easy to use. You're just taking more or less on a player's projection. You can take a look at their prop board, what they have available right now for Thursday Night Football. I am making this video on Tuesday, so at the time I'm recording this video on Tuesday, there's really not a ton of props available for Thursday night. But obviously, as we get closer to kickoff, there will be plenty of props available, different categories you can choose from. Obviously, they have passing yards for the quarterbacks, rushing yards, receiving yards. They'll add, fantasy score, receptions, touchdowns, like pretty much every prop, that any other sportsbook offers. And PrizePicks does offer more stuff that, sportsbooks don't offer as well. So you guys definitely need to be playing on PrizePicks. If you do look at the bottom of the screen, you can sign up with promo code NOAH. When you do sign up with my promo code, PrizePicks will match your first deposit up to $100. And I don't know yet if I'll be playing anything for this Thursday night game. We'll have to see what the board looks like in a couple days once all the props get added. If I do find anything I like, I will try to make a video, at least post a video to YouTube. If I don't post a video to YouTube, I'll try and share something on Patreon. But, for these primetime games, it's kind of to be determined if I play anything. I never want to force any plays. It just comes down to, if I find some picks that I like. So we'll see what the board looks like in a few days. But again, if you guys are not playing on PrizePicks yet, sign up, use promo code NOAH. You will get your first deposit matched up to $100. But talking through this Thursday Night Football game, we'll start off at the top of the player pool and just kind of work our way down. So at the top, you got Cordell Patterson, who is the most expensive option on this slate. He's $11,800. Now, Cordell Patterson, I'm a little bit iffy on for today for this game. So last week, he made his return from injury. He hadn't played since week 4. He returned last week against the Chargers. He only got 14 touches, 13 carries, and 1 reception. He did have 2 rushing touchdowns, 2 goal line touchdowns, which obviously made his game log look good. I mean, 18 DraftKings points is solid. But I'm a little bit hesitant to go to Cordell Patterson here. For one, it's a short week, and he's coming back from an injury, so that's always a concern. Plus, if you look at his snap counts from last week, he only played on 39% of the snaps. They still involve Tyler Algier a good amount. He played on 38% of the snaps. Caleb Huntley played on 21% of the snaps. So they kind of ran like a 3-man committee at running back. I'm a little bit hesitant to go to Cordell here, especially because he's almost 12K. He's really, really expensive. Can he still have a good game? I mean, he absolutely can. This Panthers run defense has been pretty bad this season. They're giving up the fifth most rushing yards per game to opposing running backs. So, I think it's a pretty good matchup. It's just a little bit worried about his workload. The fact that he played 39% of the snaps last week, plus it being a short week. He's coming back from injury. He's just kind of a pay-up to be contrarian play. I don't think he's going to get a ton of ownership. I do expect probably the quarterbacks will be more owned than Cordell Patterson. At almost 12K, I think there's probably other ways I'd rather spend my salary on this slate. You do have the quarterbacks who are actually a lot cheaper. You got Mariota at $10,200, and then you have PJ Walker at $9,600. Mariota, I think, is a pretty solid play on this Showdown slate. Now, for fantasy this season, he's kind of been up and down. We've seen the Falcons just really not throw the ball much this season. I mean, there's been games this year where Mariota has literally thrown the ball like 13, 14 times. There's going to be games where they do get behind, like against the Saints, he threw the ball 33 times. In those type of game scripts, you will see some big upside from Mariota. But the fact that the Falcons are so intent on running the ball as much as possible, that does kind of hurt Mariota's ceiling a little bit. But he is a quarterback that does offer rushing upside. He's a guy that can get you 12, 15 DraftKings points relatively easily. I know he had a really bad game last week, but normally Mariota's going to throw for like 140, 50 yards. He's going to run for like 30, 40 yards. If he gets into the end zone, maybe 1 passing touchdown, you're probably going to be doing okay playing Mariota at this salary. So I definitely think at $10,200, he's probably one of the better pay-up options here. I think I would take the savings and play Mariota over Cordell Patterson. I just think Mariota, when you're looking for a guy that has some upside, he's at least a quarterback that offers rushing upside. There's not a ton of players on this slate that offer big-time upside, so I definitely think Mariota at 10-2 is very solid here. Now, PJ Walker, I'm a little bit iffy on. So PJ Walker, for one, I think he's going to have kind of a shorter leash just because he was so bad last week. We actually saw them bench him, and Baker Mayfield started the second half. They've already said that PJ Walker is going to start here, but I think if PJ Walker comes out and really struggles, like I wouldn't be surprised to see him get benched. So it's tough. I mean, he did do really well against Atlanta when they played back in Week 8. He had his best game of the season, 317 passing yards and 1 touchdown. He's 9,600, so like I don't think he's like a guy you have to pay up for. I mean, we've seen PJ Walker as a starter this season be pretty poor. Like he's not been that good. He had negative fantasy points last week in literally one half of football. He played 2 quarters and had negative fantasy points. Like that's really hard to do, and PJ Walker somehow did that. So I think it's a good matchup. I wouldn't be surprised to see PJ Walker have a good game here, but I would definitely prioritize Mariota over Walker if just choosing between the 2 quarterbacks. But like if you are playing, like if you're playing lineups where you have a Panthers pass catcher at captain, so like if you play any lineups with DJ Moore at captain or maybe Terrace Marshall at captain, it probably makes some sense to put PJ Walker in those lineups just because if you're assuming DJ Moore has a big game, if you're assuming he's the winning captain, that probably means that PJ Walker is also having a good game. But I think I would only be playing PJ Walker in the lineups that I prioritize playing a Panthers pass catcher at captain. Other than that, I don't think I'd be forcing PJ Walker in. Now, if he were to just fit into a lineup, I'm fine with it, but definitely not a must on the slate, but just because we've seen a pretty low floor from PJ Walker as a starting quarterback this season. Also, again, I think his leash is going to be kind of short. Like if he comes out and really struggles, I would not be surprised to see him get benched for Baker Mayfield. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the next options. So you got some of these wide receivers. You got 9,200 DJ Moore, 8,400 Terrace Marshall. DJ Moore, he's been very, very solid this season in terms of like targets. His game log's been pretty bad. Like he's not had a ton of great games, but the targets have been there. I mean, you look at his targets. He's had at least 6 targets in every single game this season. He's leading the team in target share on the season. And since week 7, so basically the last 3 games without Christian McCaffrey, we've seen DJ Moore really dominate the target share. 31% target share for DJ Moore over their last 3 games. He's been the clear number 1 option for PJ Walker. I mean, I know he had a disappointing game last week, but I think in this matchup against a Falcons secondary that's really just not good. I mean, so far this season, the Falcons have been giving it up to wide receivers, giving up the second most fantasy points to the wide receiver position in terms of like receptions per game, most receptions per game, second most receiving yards. It's a really, really good spot here for these Carolina receivers. I think DJ Moore on the slate definitely offers that big-time upside. I mean, like I said earlier, there's not a ton of guys on the slate that offer like 25, 30-point upside, but I think DJ Moore is one of those guys that can get you 100 yards and a touchdown. So he definitely looks like one of the better plays on the slate, in my opinion. I do like him quite a bit at 9,200. Terrace Marshall got priced up a good amount to 8,400. He's been the clear kind of wide receiver 2 for the Panthers lately, really ever since the Robbie Anderson trade. I mean, Terrace Marshall has stepped in and played a good amount. Last few weeks, he's been playing like almost every single snap. Last week, he played 92% of the snaps. The week before that, 93% of the snaps. He's been getting targets too, 15 targets over their last 2 games. I think since he's closely priced to DJ Moore, I have a feeling his ownership is going to be pretty low because I think a lot of people are just going to go to DJ Moore over Terrace Marshall. Does Terrace Marshall, like, is he better than DJ Moore? Obviously not even close. But could he have a better game than DJ Moore? I mean, it's definitely possible. He had a better game than DJ Moore last week. It's a good matchup, so I wouldn't be surprised to see both these Carolina receivers do somewhat well here. Again, if they do wind up both doing well, that probably means PJ Walker's doing well too. So you kind of want to correlate your lineups in that scenario. But I do like these Carolina receivers a little bit. I definitely prefer DJ Moore straight up, but Terrace Marshall seems to be earning a bigger role. He seems to be the clear wide receiver 2 for Carolina right now, and I think on this slate with so few good options, I think Terrace Marshall is viable here. And then you have these Atlanta pass catchers. So you got Drake London at 8,200. You got Kyle Pitts at 7K. I mean, Drake London has probably been one of the most disappointing receivers this season, especially after like the first 2 weeks of the season. I know a lot of people, including myself, were expecting Drake London to have a pretty big year. The targets were there to start the season, and really ever since then, I mean, the targets have been okay. He just hasn't really been able to do anything with those targets. Again, it kind of comes down to the Falcons just not being a pass-first offense. This team is just they're going to run the ball as much as they possibly can. But I do expect that if Marcus Mariota throws the ball 20, 25 times, that probably means Drake London's getting at least 6, 7, 8 targets. He's been leading the team in target share this season. Him and Kyle Pitts are kind of the clear top 2 options in this offense in terms of pass catchers. So I still think Drake London is viable. I would rather get up to DJ Moore. Between him and Terrace Marshall, I think that's pretty close, but I definitely prefer DJ Moore the most out of all those receivers. But I do think that Drake London is in play here. I think the matchup's pretty solid. I would not be surprised to see him have a good game. The targets have been there. It's just a matter of if he can finally break away a long reception or get into the end zone Obviously, he hasn't been able to do that lately, but I think at some point it's probably coming. And then you have Kyle Pitts at 7K. I played Kyle Pitts in my main lineup last week, and I was just, God, it was so tilting because I watched a lot of that game last week against the Chargers. And if you watched the game too, you saw, I mean, there were so many opportunities for Kyle Pitts to break off some long catches. I think there was a couple deep balls. Mariota overthrew him. There was one play where Kyle Pitts was wide open. If Mariota hits him in stride, it's a 60-yard touchdown. But Mariota overthrew him, so obviously that reception didn't count. He only had 2 catches for 27 yards on 7 targets last week. It's kind of been the same thing for Kyle Pitts every week. He's been getting the targets. He just hasn't been able to do anything with the targets. But he did finally have a good game against this Panthers team when they played in Week 8. 5 catches, 80 yards, and a touchdown on 9 targets. Same thing can kind of be said for Pitts as we just said for London. Like, if Mariota throws the ball 25 times, you could see 8 targets for both Pitts and London. You could see 9 or 10 targets for both those guys. Like, they're clearly the top 2 pass catchers in this offense. Because Pitts is only 7K, I think he does look like a pretty good option on this showdown slate. And I know Kyle Pitts has been like the most frustrating player in fantasy football this season. He just hasn't been able to do anything. He randomly pops off at times. He had a good game in Week 8 against Carolina. Maybe this will be another good game for Kyle Pitts. We know the usage is going to be there, though. The targets are going to be there. He's going to be on the field for a large majority of the snaps. Last week, he played 69% of the snaps, 75%, 79%. Like, he's basically in every down tight end at this point. He's going to be out there running routes. It's just a matter of if him and Mariota can finally connect. I know last week they failed to connect on a lot of those deep balls. Hopefully this will be the week they're able to connect. I think Kyle Pitts at 7K does look like a pretty good option here. Him and DJ Moore are probably my 2 favorite plays in this kind of mid-tier range, but I think Drake London and Terrence Marshall are also viable. Don't want to skip over Deontay Foreman, though. So Deontay Foreman, 7,800. He's obviously kind of taken over as the number 1 running back for Carolina with Christian McCaffrey traded. Ever since the McCaffrey trade, we've seen some pretty good games from Deontay Foreman. He was pretty disappointing last week, but the 2 weeks prior to that, 26 carries, 118 yards against this Falcons team, had 3 touchdowns, 15 carries, 118 yards, and 19 DK points against Tampa Bay the week before. I think the volume's going to be there for Deontay Foreman. We will need to keep an eye on the status of Chuba Hubbard. So, like I said earlier, guys, I'm making this video on Tuesday. We'll have to pay attention to the injury report heading up to Thursday's game. Chuba Hubbard has missed, I believe, the last 2 games for Carolina, and we've seen Deontay Foreman have a really, really big workload. I would expect that if Hubbard plays here, Foreman might not get 20 touches. He might only get 15, 16, but that would still put him in play. I would definitely have more interest in Foreman, though, if Hubbard doesn't play. So that will be something to monitor. We'll have to keep an eye on that heading up to Thursday. But like last week, it's hard to look into the snaps last week because last week they did get blown out. And I know Foreman got pulled late in the game. Like, he wasn't even out there like in the 4th quarter. But he played 43% of the snaps last week. The 2 weeks prior to that, 68% and 54%. He's going to get probably 12 to 15 carries here. It's a really good matchup. He did crush against the Falcons when they played back in Week 8. But again, I think my interest in Foreman is going to depend on if Hubbard plays. Because if Hubbard plays, I think Hubbard will be involved. They also have been involving like Spencer Brown a little bit. We saw Raheem Blackshear get some touches last week. It's a really tough situation because I don't know how many active running backs the Panthers will even have for this game if Hubbard winds up playing. Like, if Hubbard winds up playing, they legit might have like 4 active running backs, which is a really gross situation to kind of target. But I still think Foreman is the lead back, and I think especially in games where they're playing from ahead, Foreman will be the guy out there getting the carries. But we'll have to keep an eye on the status of Chuba Hubbard because I think his availability does kind of impact Foreman a good amount. But again, Hubbard is 5,800. If he were to play, how much would he be involved? It's really tough to tell. Like in Week 7, he got 9 carries and he had 2 receptions. I would expect probably like 7 to 10 touches. I mean, it's hard to consider him a great play on this showdown slate, but if something were to happen to Foreman, I don't want to say an injury, but if Foreman were to maybe struggle, maybe he gets fumbled, maybe a bench happens, you never really know. So I think Hubbard has a path to 12 to 15 touches, but at 5,800, he's not really going to look like that great of a play. I think his price is appropriate. Plus, it's a short week. He's coming back from injury. I doubt he sees like a massive workload anyway. And then like some of these value plays, man, like value is so gross on this slate. There's really not a ton of value you're going to feel good about. Olamide Zaccheaus has been the wide receiver 2/3 for the Falcons this year. Last week he played on 70% of the snaps. He's been their wide receiver 2 pretty much, but obviously he's still competing for targets with Drake London and Kyle Pitts. He really hasn't been earning targets at that great of a rate this season. His target share has not been that good either. But he's going to be on the field for probably 70 to 80% of the snaps. He's going to be running routes. He's 5,400. I guess he's playable. But I don't feel great about Zacchaeus. I think there is a pretty low floor there. The defenses on this slate, I probably wouldn't go there. I mean, I could see PJ Walker having another bad game, but like the Falcons defense is just so bad. I don't really want to target the defenses on this slate. Blackshear, we saw him get some touches last week, 5 carries for 13 yards. He also had 4 receptions. I know a lot of his touches, but I think those receptions came late in the game, like when they were getting blown out. Again, if like Chuba Hubbard's active this week, I really have zero interest in Blackshear because at that point I think he'll be like the RB3/4. This Panthers backfield is going to be a really tricky one to target just because like does Blackshear continue to get involvement if Hubbard's active? Like I really don't know. I highly doubt it. So at 5K, he's really not in play for me. Caleb Huntley, now that Cordell Patterson's back, I really don't have any interest in him. Tyler Algier, we didn't even talk about, but like he did get 10 carries last week. He was really, really efficient with those carries, though. He averaged almost 10 yards per carry. He had a 44-yard run. Like I'm not really going to target Algier either. Again, like the running backs in this game, it's just Cordell Patterson, I think, is the lead back for Atlanta, but he's really expensive. Deontay Foreman's probably like the guy that I would target if I were to go to a running back in this game, but I'm a little bit worried that he will be losing some touches to Hubbard and maybe some of these other running backs that have been getting some carries lately. It's just a gross game, man. Gross game. There's not going to be a lot of plays you feel good about in this one. Some of these other receivers like Damiere Byrd, he's just basically like a deep threat. Last week, Damiere Byrd played on 48% of the snaps. He only saw 1 target. He did have that week where he saw 6 targets against Carolina, but like I wouldn't expect 6 targets for Damiere Byrd. I think at most you're getting like 2 or 3 targets. You just got to hope for like a long touchdown. At 4,400, he's really not that great of a play in my opinion. I think the kickers are solid here. The value on the slate is so bad that I think the kickers do look like pretty decent values. Shi Smith, I think if I were to take a shot on someone this cheap, like he might be the guy I would look to. He only saw 2 targets last week, but he has been playing a good amount of the snaps. He's been kind of the clear wide receiver 3 for Carolina. Last week he did play 80% of the snaps. The week before that, 48%, 50%. He's going to be the guy they use in 3 wide receiver sets. They're going to involve, DJ Moore and Terrace Marshall are going to play on the outside, and then Shi Smith will play out of the slot for the most part. So in those 3 wide receiver sets, he will get some playing time. At 3,600, like I think if he does play 55% of the snaps, we're just kind of scraping the barrel to find some sort of value on the slate. So I think Shi Smith is kind of someone we can look to. The Carolina tight ends, I mean, last week Tommy Tremble did play 55% of the snaps, and he's kind of been their number 1 tight end as of late. He's seen 4 targets in back-to-back games. He's a guy that I don't mind going to. Like in order for him to probably have a good game at this salary, he's almost going to have to score a touchdown. Like I'd be very surprised if he puts up a good game without getting into the end zone. But at 3,200, if he's going to be the number 1 tight end for the Panthers at this salary, like I think he's okay. But man, these value plays are really gross. Like Ian Thomas played 37% of the snaps last week, but didn't get targeted. He's basically like touchdown or bust. Laviska Shenault has barely been involved. Last week he played just 3 snaps. The week before that he played 23 snaps. He did get 6 targets the week he played 29% of the snaps, but at this point he's like the wide receiver 4 for Carolina. So like he's not someone I really have a ton of interest in anyways. He's a guy we've seen have some good games in the past when he was on Jacksonville, but his role with this Carolina team just doesn't seem to be that good. So really tough to have a ton of confidence in him. And like none of these other guys are really going to feel good about. Kaderil Hodge is $1,400. He saw 2 targets last week. He's been like the wide receiver 4 for the Falcons. Last week he played 26% of the snaps. He's like touchdown or bust. I mean, a lot of these guys down here are basically touchdown or bust. There's really nothing else I see that it's even playable. I mean, value on the slate is really gross. I think if I had to say my favorite value plays are probably the kickers, probably Shi Smith and Tommy Tremble, but man, like it's really bad. I don't feel good about a ton of guys down here, so you're just going to have to kind of take some shots on some guys and just hope you get like a touchdown or something because the value on the slate is pretty gross. But we kind of talked about everything, guys. We talked about all the playable options, all the guys that I do have interest in for this Showdown slate. As always, hope you guys enjoy these videos. I hope they do help. If you enjoyed, hit that like button before you do get out of here. Hit that subscribe button if you have not yet. And again, check out PrizePicks. They are the sponsor of this video. You can sign up for PrizePicks. Use promo code NOAH. When you do sign up with my promo code, PrizePicks will match your first deposit up to $100. And you can take a look at their board, see what they have available for Thursday night. Obviously, right now, at the time I'm making this video on Tuesday, there's really not a ton of props available, but as we get closer to the start of the game on Thursday night, PrizePicks will add a lot more props. You can see if there's anything that stands out to you that you want to play. Again, you're just taking more or less on a player's projection. You have to make at least 2 picks, but you can make up to 5 picks and you can win up to 10 extra money on Prize Picks. Definitely sign up over there. Get signed up. Use promo code Noah. You will get your first deposit matched up to $100 when you sign up with my promo code. But good luck on the Showdown slate, guys. Hopefully we get a good game this Thursday night. Have a feeling it's not going to be the best one, but best of luck to you guys. Appreciate you watching the video. Hope you enjoyed. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.